Listen to what this Israeli has to say.
Good morning. You can keep calling me a conspiracy theorist. I don't give a but I am going to share with you something that keeps with my mind and the media will never tell you about. I arrived in Israel on August 4th to visit my family. The entire country was upside down. Over 400,000 Israelis, that's 5% of the country, were protesting in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem to overthrow Netanyahu and its government's effort to radically transform the judiciary in Israel. Netanyahu and other politicians wanted to strip the Supreme Court of its power to overturn their decision if found unconstitutional. In other words, Netanyahu and other politicians wanted to consolidate the power to themselves. Then suddenly there is a Hamas attack. Thousands of people are getting killed. All the media and attention shifted to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. All Israelis stand together against the Palestinians, and Netanyahu stays in power. You want to tell me that all of this happens by coincidence? I don't think so.
That we've ever seen before in recent time. Apart from wiping out Hamas, what's Israel's main aim here? Would they occupy more territory, given the scenes that we're seeing today, which reminds many of the Nakba?
Well, to answer your question, it's important to look at context, and the context is very rarely mentioned in the media. Israel is the product of the Zionist movement, and the plan of the Zionist movement was always to create an exclusively Jewish state on all of Palestine. In order to do that, you have to remove the non-Jewish indigenous people. That's the plan, and that's never actually changed. The Nakba was an attempt to make it happen, but back then Israel was unable to get rid of all the Palestinians, and the 750,000 people that were ethnically cleansed ended up in places like Gaza and around the Middle East. What you see now is nothing special in a way. It is a continuation of the same thing. I don't think the words settler colonialism are mentioned enough in the media. And so when your viewers, when people are watching this, they're trying to understand what's going on, but they don't understand it. There is an illusion, I think, the media are trying to create that Israel has promoted of symmetry between Israel and the Palestinian people. And there is no symmetry. There is no symmetry between a settler colonizer who's trying to remove the indigenous people and the colonizer and the indigenous people themselves. It's a complete imbalance of power. Israel is a settler colonialist state, and it has always worked consistently to complete its plan. I think that the attack by Hamas in Gaza was just a pretext to basically ethnically cleanse Gaza. What you see now is not just a conflict. It's not something that's going to disappear. Israel will not stop until it gets rid of all the Palestinians. And I actually believe that once they finish with Gaza, they're going to come for the West Bank. And after that, probably for the Israeli citizens, the Palestinian citizens of Israel. And there are calls in the Israeli government to remove citizenship from them, which will make them stateless as well. Israel will not stop, and the world needs to understand.
We're happy to correctly use the most strong and robust language to describe the crimes against humanity of Vladimir Putin, but you will not use the same strength of language when it comes to describing Israel's treatment of the Palestinians, when it is now being documented and detailed by two of the most respected human rights organizations in the world. Anybody who looks honestly at the decades of brutal, inhumane persecution of the Palestinians, successive assaults on Gaza, the annexation of their land and territory, the systematic application of apartheid rules, you don't want to even use the word apartheid. Never mind sanctions. 5 days sanctions against Putin and his thugs, 70 years of oppression by the Palestinians, and it wouldn't be, what was the word you used? It wouldn't be helpful to impose sanctions. Amnesty International are calling for Israel to be referred to the International Criminal Court for crimes against humanity.
When you first heard what Hamas had done, what went through your head?
Regret that the international community has not heeded our warnings for all these years. Regret that this was allowed to fester for decades. Regret that there is attention now only because blood has been spilled. I wish we did not get to this moment.
So you listed a number of things you regret there. Do you regret the loss of innocent life in Israel?
Every loss of life is regrettable, of course, and tragic. The question is, how do we stop this? How do we provide an alternative path? How do we learn the lessons and the mistakes of the past? How do we treat the Palestinian people after 100 years of suffering? How do we stop this demise into the mayhem that you have described? Do not underestimate people's will and desire for freedom, to end occupation and captivity. This isn't about Hamas only. This isn't about the last 48 hours. This has been ongoing for more than 100 years. It started here, by the way, Louise, in this very city. It was Britain that gave our rights away without even consulting us. This is about time that we really give a different path.
In each of these cases, the Israeli position is to immediately deny responsibility, then hastily release pieces of information it says is proof, only to later backtrack and admit responsibility.
In the past, ourselves were fast to go to conclusions.
Last year, Israeli airstrikes struck a cemetery near the Jabaliyah refugee camp in Gaza, killing 5 children aged 4 to 16. The IDF immediately refuted the report, blaming it instead on a misfired rocket from Islamic Jihad. Initial reports even suggested it didn't bear the normal signs of an airstrike. Instead, the IDF released this radar tracking image showing the path of the rockets. 9 days later, Israeli defense officials admitted it was an Israeli airstrike. When veteran Al Jazeera journalist Shireen Abu Akleh was killed by Israeli snipers, the IDF published videos of Palestinian militants blaming them for her death. But after 9 months of meticulous investigation by reporters, the IDF finally admitted it was responsible.
Looks like they're taking over the road. I'm not exactly sure. But the anger here is that not enough is being done about the hostages, that Israel seems to be willing to fight in Gaza but not bring these people home. And basically to a person here, we've been told that everybody is willing to give up the 10, 11,000 Palestinian prisoners being held in Israel in exchange for the 150 or so. And the basic idea is that tension is so high here that people are blaming Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for getting into this mess, for thinking about his own political situation for the past number of years, and not about protecting the citizens of the south of this country, not about increasing security, and not thinking about dealing with Hamas in any other way than just allowing them to exist and then, bombing them every once in a while. That there has been no strategic plan. It's been keeping a status quo that is untenable. Bibi is a murderer. That's what the people behind me are chanting. Bibi is a murderer.
And they told me, how come you don't apologize for September 11th and for ISIS? So I told him that I will apologize. Right after you apologized to me for the 200 million Africans that were taken from Africa, the majority of which were killed on the way here. Why don't you apologize for being the only nation to ever drop a nuclear bomb on another nation? Hiroshima and Nagasaki, you think I forgot? Think I'm a goldfish? Why doesn't Mr. Trump apologize for his ancestors from Germany? There have been 2 world wars, right? Which one did the Muslims begin? Wait, none of them. Wasn't us. Who did the Holocaust? Wasn't us. What is the apology for every innocent child that dies in a drone attack? I'll expect an apology from Mr. Trump for his grandfather, member of the KKK, as has been well documented. So don't ask us for an apology. And if Mr. Trump wants to put a Muslim ban, this isn't your country to ban. And there are Muslims here. If he wants to go somewhere where there is no Muslims, I suggest he goes to hell. Because in hell, a time will come that there will be no Muslim.
If you were Israel, what would you...
If I was Israel.
If you were Israel and that had happened to you, what would you think would be the appropriate way for the country to respond?
I would do exactly like Israel did, kill as many people as possible since the world is letting me do it. I mean, I can do it because I can, But the thing is, you know what? I agree with you. And you know what? I'm going to be even ahead of you because I see the question coming. Do you condemn Hamas for the atrocity? Yes, I condemn Hamas. I condemn Hamas. Hamas is the source of all evil. They're a reason for everything. And you know what? Let's, for a minute, imagine a world without Hamas.
Right.
What will this word look like? Let's give this word a name. And let's name this word the West Bank. Hamas has absolutely no control in the West Bank. And since the beginning of this year, only through August, 37 Palestinian kids were killed. No music festival, no paragliding, no Hamas.
Joe Biden is to blame. We have a Zionist president, a Zionist Supreme Court, and a Zionist Congress. Why does my tax dollars have to go to fund genocide? Republicans and Democrats don't want to pay for your health care or your education. Yet, they're paying for free 100% health care, 100% education, one health 100% free housing on illegal settlements in my hometown. I don't need Biden on my side. I need Biden to be on the just side, not on genocide. They're blaming this on a senior citizen. It was a senior citizen who started this. Biden and the other senior citizens. Trump! Those are the senior citizens we blame, not this terrorist. All he did was do the butchering. They financed it, they sanctioned, they put their ideology.
The Jews survived for over 1,000 years protected by Muslims in places like Al-Andalus, in places like Syria, in places like the Middle East, as far as Yemen. There were Jewish people in Iraq, in Yemen, in Morocco, in Tunisia, in Libya, in Egypt, as late as the 1930s. What changed after the 1930s? Lo and behold, the State of Israel was created, and that centuries-old peace was disrupted, and a lot of the Jewish people, they migrated to the newly created State of Israel,